I never thought silence could be so loud. It was a humid Saturday afternoon in July, the kind where the air feels too thick to breathe and everything moves in slow motion. I remember the smell of vanilla and rose from the candle I had lit that morning still lingering in the living room. I had been cleaning out a drawer in our bedroom, absently organizing old cards, notes, and mementos from our wedding, which had taken place barely 8 months earlier. And then, my phone buzzed. Just once. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. The preview read, "I thought you should know the truth. Check the photos attached." I almost didn't open it. Part of me knew. Like a shadow that had always been behind me but finally stepped into the light. My fingers trembled as I tapped the message. There they were. My husband. And her. Not in a bar. Not at a party. Not even pretending to hide. They were in a hotel room. Our favorite hotel. The same room he and I had stayed in for our anniversary. He was holding her waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her face, half-turned, laughing, was unmistakable. It was Emma, my best friend, my maid of honor. For a few seconds, my body forgot how to function. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even blink. I just stared at the screen over and over again, as if it would change. The room spun. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner and the soft ticking of the wall clock, and yet everything felt impossibly still, like I was trapped inside a snow globe, watching a version of my life crumble around me in slow motion. The bouquet she held on my wedding day, the way she whispered, "You're the luckiest woman in the world," right before I walked down the aisle. The way he looked at her during our rehearsal dinner, and I thought, wow, they really are close. Every memory became a knife. I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited. Not from food. From grief. From betrayal so deep it clawed at my lungs. I tried to call him. No answer. I tried to call her. Straight to voicemail. It was like the people I loved most had vanished. Into the truth I never saw coming. Or maybe I did. Maybe I chose not to see. The weight of that realization, how blind love can be, nearly crushed me. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching my knees, my face soaked with tears that wouldn't stop. My wedding dress was still hanging in the back of the closet. The one she zipped up for me. The one he unzipped on our wedding night. How do you rebuild a heart that was shattered by the very hands that once promised to protect it? Worse, how do you breathe again when love becomes a weapon in the hands of those you trusted most? Because that day, I didn't just lose a husband. I didn't just lose a best friend. I lost myself. And what followed was a descent into a darkness I never knew existed. But before I could heal, I had to understand how I got there. What signs did I ignore? What lies did I believe? Because the truth didn't start with a text message. It started long before. In smiles that didn't reach the eyes, in pauses between words, in silences too rehearsed to be innocent. This is how it all began. Before everything collapsed, my life felt like a perfectly framed photograph. The kind you'd find in a glossy wedding magazine. Sun-drenched smiles, handwritten vows, honeymoon plans scribbled in the margins of love letters. We were that couple. Or at least I thought we were. Jake and I met in college. He was magnetic in the kind of quiet way that made you lean in closer just to hear him. His laugh was soft, rare, and always meant something. We used to stay up until 3 a.m. talking about everything from music to mortality. I remember thinking this is what home feels like. When he proposed, it was in the same park where we first kissed. There were fairy lights strung through the trees, a picnic blanket, champagne, and my favorite jazz playlist playing from a hidden speaker. And standing just out of sight, filming the entire thing, was Emma, my best friend since I was 12. She was the first person I called after the proposal, even before my parents. We used to joke that if soulmates weren't romantic, she would be mine. We had matching bracelets, matching secrets, and now matching wedding memories. She threw me the most thoughtful bridal shower, every detail personalized. She gave a tearful toast at our rehearsal dinner, saying, "Watching you two together gives me hope that love still exists." I believed her. Looking back now, I wonder if that night her tears weren't for joy, but guilt. But in the moment, it all felt real. Our mornings were quiet and warm. Jake would make me coffee exactly the way I liked. 2 sugars, almond milk, a sprinkle of cinnamon. We'd sit on the couch, legs touching, scrolling through home decor ideas for the house we planned to buy. He'd kiss my forehead before heading to work, every single day. Even the silences between us felt comfortable. I ignored the little things. Like how he sometimes turned his phone face down when I entered the room. Or how Emma once changed the subject too quickly when I mentioned planning a double date. There was the time I saw a strange text preview flash on Jake's phone. "I miss you. E." He said it was from his sister, Emily. I didn't even question it. Why would I? I trusted them both. I trusted them with my life. Emma and Jake were always close. She helped him plan surprises for me, bought gifts from both of them, and even joked once, "If you ever break her heart, I'll break your face." He laughed. I laughed. I trusted. There was a night, a rainy Thursday, when I caught Emma staring at Jake during dinner. Just for a second, a strange, hollow kind of look. But when I asked her what was wrong, she said, "Nothing. Just tired." So I let it go. I let a lot of things go. 'Cause love makes you do that. It makes you give people the benefit of the doubt, even when something inside you is whispering, "Look closer." But I didn't look. I was too busy building a future, decorating our guest room, learning his mother's favorite recipes, choosing baby names. All the while, a truth was slithering under my skin, a betrayal blooming quietly in the spaces between their glances, their shared jokes, their perfectly timed absences. But the worst part wasn't that they lied. It was that I believed them. I believed in a love story that wasn't mine. And by the time I saw the truth, I had already built my entire world around their fiction. Now, when I look back at our wedding photos, I search their faces like a detective. Emma, standing beside me in lavender satin, holding my veil. Jake gazing at me like I hung the stars. How long had they been lying? How long had I been loving alone? It didn't start with a bang. Started with a pause. Missed call here. Vague excuse there. Little things that on their own meant nothing, but together formed a quiet symphony of suspicion. Jake used to text me throughout the day. Just little check-ins. Thinking of you. How's your meeting going? Miss your face. But then the text slowed. Then they stopped. He said work had picked up. Deadlines, babe. You know how it is. And I did. He was in marketing, campaign launches could be intense. I wanted to be the supportive wife. I told myself not to be needy. But it wasn't just the silence. It was the distance. He stopped looking me in the eye when we talked. His hugs felt rehearsed, cold, like he was going through the motions of a man in love, but the soul had gone missing. One evening, while folding laundry, I found a receipt in his jeans. Boutique hotel downtown. One night. 2 guests. My stomach flipped, but I told myself it must be for a client. Meeting. Mistake. Because the alternative was too painful to even consider. And then there was Emma. She started canceling plans. Said she was burned out, traveling for work, seeing someone new but not ready to talk about it. I didn't push. I just missed her. She used to be the first person I'd call when I needed advice. Now she barely responded to texts. When I asked Jake if he thought she was acting weird, he shrugged. She's always been a little complicated. I laughed, but inside I felt something shift. Then came the night everything began to unravel. I was cleaning the apartment, bored and nostalgic, when I grabbed Jake's old iPad from the bookshelf. We hadn't used it in months, probably since the honeymoon. I thought maybe I'd find old photos or our playlist. What I found was everything. The iPad was still linked to his messages. And there, hidden in plain sight, was a string of texts under a contact named E. I wish I could tell you I stopped reading. I didn't. I read everything. Her words, his replies, their jokes, their memories, their plans. Some messages dated before our wedding. You looked so hot today. She doesn't even notice, does she? Soon, baby. Just a little longer. We shouldn't have started this, but I don't want to stop. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled faster, like maybe I'd find a message that said it was all a joke. That it wasn't my Emma. That this wasn't my husband. But then I saw the photos. Her face. His hands. My betrayal. I dropped the iPad. It clattered to the ground like a body. And I sat there in the middle of our living room, wrapped in a silence so loud it crushed me. I didn't cry right away. I just sat. For hours maybe. Frozen. A single, devastating question circling my mind like a vulture. Was any of it ever real? The next morning, I didn't confront him. Couldn't. I watched him make coffee, kiss my forehead, say, "Love you." I watched him lie to my face like it cost him nothing. And suddenly I was afraid of the truth. Because if I said it out loud, if I asked, "Are you sleeping with my best friend?" then the life I had would disappear. And all I'd be left with was the answer. So instead I smiled back and said, "Love you too." But the truth was already spreading through my veins like poison. And no amount of pretending could stop the collapse that was coming. The first time I said the words out loud, they didn't sound real. I was alone in the shower, water scalding, hands gripping the tile. I whispered it to the steam. "He's cheating on me with her." I waited for the world to end, for the walls to collapse, for the sky to shatter above me. But nothing happened, just the steady drip of betrayal echoing through my chest. I didn't confront Jake that night. Couldn't. Instead I played the role, perfect wife, perfectly crumbling inside. I needed time, plan, proof, courage. I began gathering what I already knew. Screenshots, receipts, and the silence. Oh, the silence between them, between us, became my cruelest evidence. I wasn't ready to let go. I told myself, maybe there's an explanation. Maybe it was a mistake, a one-time thing. Maybe she seduced him. Maybe he regrets it. Maybe it's my fault. That thought hit me hardest. Had I changed, gained weight, focused too much on work, been too tired, too busy, too boring? I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were hollow, my lips trembling even when I wasn't speaking. My whole body felt like it was wearing grief. So I decided to fix it. Cooked his favorite meals. I lit candles. I laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I even bought new lingerie. Black lace, unfamiliar and desperate. He noticed. He smiled. He kissed me harder. And for a flicker of a moment, I thought I had rewound time. But the truth doesn't stay buried. One night, he left his phone in the kitchen while showering. It lit up with a text from her. "I hate pretending. When are you going to tell her?" I stared at those words for a long time. When are you going to tell her? They weren't planning to stop. They were planning to replace me. That night I finally asked him, "Is there something you're not telling me?" He looked up from his plate. Pasta, cold, untouched, and blinked. "What do you mean?" I held his gaze, steady but aching. "With Emma." Was. Too long. Then. What? Well, course not. Emma. He laughed. But it was the wrong kind of laugh. A laugh to fill the silence, to erase the moment. "She's your friend," he said. "Why would you even think that?" "'Cause I know I wanted to scream. 'Cause I read the text. Because I watched you two fall in love behind my back while I planned our wedding. But instead I just said, I don't know." He reached for my hand. "Don't do this," he whispered. "Please. Don't ruin what we have with some insecurity." Insecurity. That's what he called it. And just like that, the guilt turned on me. I began to wonder if I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe I was spiraling. Maybe grief was blinding me. Maybe I was the problem. I booked a therapy session. Not for us. For me. I told the therapist. "I think my husband is cheating on me with my best friend. But I'm still hoping I'm wrong." She looked at me, kind and still. "Why are you hoping you're wrong?" I hesitated. "Because if I'm right, then everything I've ever believed in was a lie." And still I stayed. For weeks I tried. Tried to love better. Be better. Wait for him to choose me. But every day it got heavier. The pretending. The performing. the constant ache. Until one night, I woke up from a nightmare gasping for air, suffocating on silence, choking on doubt. And I realized I was already living the nightmare. The only question left was, when would I wake up? It happened on a Thursday. There's something cruel about Thursdays. Too far from the weekend to feel free, too deep in the week to turn back. Just suspended by me. That day, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. A kind of quiet knowing. Like my soul had finally grown tired of the war between truth and denial. Jake was in the shower. I sat at the edge of our bed, clutching the iPad. The one with all the messages. I had it opened not to a text or a photo this time, but to a video. A video Emma had sent him. She was lying in a bed, tangled in sheets I recognized. Her sheets. Her voice soft, playful, intimate. Her fingers trailing over her bare shoulder as she whispered, "She doesn't even notice you're gone, does she?" It wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. Closed the iPad. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. Felt calm. Because the worst had already happened. Now it was time to end it. When he came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, humming some tune I used to love, I stood up and said his name. Just once. He looked up, smiled. "Hey, babe." I held up the iPad and said, "You forgot to log out." His face changed. Not fear. Not shame. Resignation. As if he had been waiting for this moment as long as I had. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked, my voice so steady it scared me. He sat down. Didn't deny it. Didn't cry. Didn't beg. He just said, "I didn't mean for it to happen." That line. The coward's anthem. I laughed. A bitter, broken sound that tasted like the last 8 years of my life burning in my throat. "How long?" He hesitated. Snap. "How long, Jake?" "Before the wedding," he whispered. 6 months before. Covered my mouth. My knees buckled. And still, he didn't move to hold me. "I thought I loved you," he said. "I do love you. Just differently." "Differently," I echoed. "Than her." Silence. "Emma was my sister," I hissed. "Not by blood but by choice. And you." I couldn't finish. My voice collapsed. He reached for me and I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "If you touch me right now, I will never forgive myself for letting you near me again." And I meant it. He began to cry. Toughly. The kind of crying you expect to move someone. But I just stood there. "Hey, me." And then I asked the question I never thought I'd ask. "Were you ever going to tell me?" He looked away. "I don't know." And that was my answer. Not the affair. Not the lies. But that. He was never going to tell me. He was going to live in our house, eat at our table, sleep in our bed, and love someone else behind my back with my best friend's face. Packed a bag. Not because I had a place to go, but because I had nowhere left to stay. As I zipped the suitcase, I looked around the room we'd built together. Every photo, every shared piece of furniture, every echo of laughter, and felt it all turn to ash. He tried to stop me. He said, "Please, let's fix this. We can go to therapy. We can." "No." I looked him in the eye one last time. "You already made your choice. I'm just finally making mine." And with that I walked out. Out of the house. Out of the lies. Out of the life I thought was mine. But as I stepped into the night air, suitcase in hand, I realized something terrifying. I had no idea who I was without them. But I was about to find out. In the days that followed, everything felt too quiet. Not peaceful, hollow. Like the air had been sucked out of my life and replaced with static. I'd moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Just one bedroom. No framed photos. No scent of his cologne clinging to the pillows. No Emma calling to check in. Should have felt like freedom. But grief has a way of handcuffing itself to your ankles, dragging behind you even when you run. For weeks, I barely left the apartment. Food tasted like paper. Sleep came in fits. Some mornings I forgot who I was. Others I remembered too much. I'd replay conversations in my mind, trying to see where the lies began. trying to trace the thread of betrayal to its source. But there's no clean incision with emotional infidelity. It seeps into everything. It rewrites your history. So I started with the only thing I could control, my own story. Therapy became my anchor. My therapist, Sasha, had the kind of eyes that didn't flinch, even when I told her the ugliest truths. I feel like I was nothing to them, I confessed one day. You weren't nothing, she said gently. You were real. They just chose a fantasy. Those words hit me like gospel. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't unlovable. I was betrayed. And there's a difference. I began journaling 1 page a day, even when I didn't know what to say. Sometimes I just wrote, "Today I made coffee." I didn't cry. That was enough. I also blocked them, both of them. No more checking their socials. No more wondering if they lasted, if they were still together, if they were happy. I stopped bleeding for people who didn't bother to wipe the knife. And slowly, very slowly, the silence stopped hurting. I redecorated the apartment, painted the walls a pale blue that felt like sky, bought plants, named them. I know that sounds silly, but giving something a name made it mine, made me real again. And then one day I laughed. I was watching some dumb romantic comedy, the kind Emma and I used to mock, and I actually laughed. Loud and sudden and mine. It didn't mean I was healed, but it meant I wasn't dead inside anymore. I reconnected with people I'd pushed away. Old friends, my sister, women who knew me before I became his wife, or her best friend. And I learned to say no. No to explaining myself. No to justifying my pain. No to anyone who made me feel like I had to shrink in order to be loved. One afternoon, I saw a mother walking hand in hand with her daughter. The little girl looked up and asked, "Why do people hurt each other?" The mother smiled a little sad and said, "Sometimes people don't know how to love the right way." That stayed with me. Because maybe Jake did love me, in a shallow, broken way. And maybe Emma did care, just not enough to stop herself. But their failure wasn't mine. My love was deep, loyal, real. And I deserved someone who could meet me in that same place. I don't know if I believe in happy endings anymore. At least, not the kind we're taught to expect. But I believe in new beginnings. In rebuilding. In reclaiming every piece of yourself they tried to take. Because I may have walked away shattered. But every day I chose to put myself back together. Not as the woman they loved, but as the woman I love. People always ask the wrong question after betrayal. They ask, "Don't you miss him?" Or "Would you take her back if she apologized?" Or even worse, "Do you think you'll ever trust someone again?" But no one ever asks, "What did you learn about yourself when your world fell apart?" And that's the question that matters. Because yes, I miss who I thought he was. I miss who she pretended to be. I miss the life I imagined. The dinner parties, the anniversary trips, the babies with his eyes and my laugh. But I don't miss the cage I lived in. I don't miss silencing my gut to protect someone else's comfort. I don't miss shrinking my voice, my needs, my worth, just to keep love from leaving. Because that wasn't love. It was dependency dressed as devotion. And when it all came crashing down, when the truth kicked in the door and tore through everything I thought was real, I had two choices. Let it destroy me, or let it define me. And maybe, at first, I let it destroy me. I curled up with the pain. I held it like a blanket. I let it whisper lies in my ear. "You're not enough, you're replaceable, you're to blame." But one day I stood up, and I decided to start asking better questions. Not why did he choose her, but why did I keep choosing people who needed me to break in order for them to shine? Not how could they lie to me, but why did I ignore the voice in my chest that already knew? That's the thing about emotional betrayal. It teaches you how to see, not them, the real you, the you that loves deeply, that forgives too quickly, that believes too hard in people who don't deserve it. And that you deserves better. I'm not who I was before the betrayal. I'm not as soft, not as easily swept up in fairy tales. But I am wiser, stronger, and maybe most importantly, mine now. I don't owe them closure. I don't owe them a place in my story anymore. Because the real story, the one that matters, is the one I'm writing now. One of boundaries, of quiet mornings that are mine alone. Of laughter that comes from me, not from being someone's punchline. Of friendships that feel like safety, not competition. Of love that starts and ends with me. And if you're watching this, if your heart is broken, if your trust has been shattered, if your soul feels bruised from trying to hold on too long, I want to leave you with this. You are not what they did to you. You are not the silence after their lies. You are the voice that comes back stronger. You are the light that refuses to go out. You are the woman who walked away. And maybe you're wondering, will I ever trust again? I don't know. But maybe the better question is, can you learn to trust yourself again? Because that is where healing begins. And before I go, I want to ask you something. Would you forgive someone who shattered your heart, while looking into your eyes and saying, I love you? Or would you do what I did? Look away, and never look back?